Hello, friends. It's Ross here, and this is my screencast. The short story that I chose is called The Necklace. It was written in February 1884 by a man named Guy de Maupassant. Its original name was La Parure, and this photo that you can see here is Guy's original illustration. So I picked some words out of the story that I thought many of the folks reading this may not know and that I personally didn't know. So I chose dowry, subordinate, coquettish, promissory notes, exorbitant, and farthing. So now some more information about Guy de Maupassant. He was a French story writer and novelist born in Normandy during 1850 and brought up by his mother. Originally he studied law, then was in the military during the French-Prussian War. After this he settled in Paris. He worked as a civil service worker until he knew he had made it in writing. In 1880 his piece, Boule de Suif, achieved much recognition and wealth. During this time he was involved with high social circles and had many love affairs. The genres of his stories vary a lot, but often still focus on showing the petty and the selfish characteristics in the humans that he writes about. Like many of his stories, the main characters are often the middle class, that could not predict or control their destiny, in a society when the reality is tough and unfair. The writer, Gustave Flaubert, was the one he looked up to most. He helped him with his subtle and neat style of writing. Maupassant was a free-spirited man who enjoyed exercise, with his favorite type being rowing. His friend, Émile Zola, described his work as this: "We leave his pages looking at ourselves with the same moral and physical joy that we gain from a walk in the plain of day." His stories are quite simple, but still very intelligent. His plots are very straightforward, and the style is deceptively simple. It was very hard to find some allusions, but the two that I found were Sphinx-like smile and waltz. Now onto the plot/summary. Monsieur and Mademoiselle were of the middle-class level of people in their city in France. They lived okay. They always had food on the table and never had many serious money problems. But it was never enough for Mademoiselle, also known as Mathilde. She wanted the finest of jewelry and clothing and wanted to be rich. One day her husband came home with an invitation to a dinner party at the Minister of Public Instruction's house. Instead of being happy, she got all upset and started moping around. When her husband asked her why, she said she didn't have anything nice to wear. She ended up buying a new expensive dress and then went to her friend Madame Forestier's house to see if she could borrow some jewelry. When she got there, the big diamond necklace caught her eye. She had to have it for the night. Her friend agreed to lend it to her. A few days later, the Loisels were at the party and the night was a success. Everyone was looking at Mathilde the whole night. When they got home, Mademoiselle realized that she was no longer wearing the necklace. It was gone forever. They searched and searched and couldn't find it. The husband and wife did what they thought they should do. They bought her friend the same necklace, and for the next several years they paid off the debt they had. They were now poor and had nothing. One day, Mademoiselle was walking through the park when she saw her old friend, Madame Forestier. She told her the whole story of what happened with the necklace, and that she was now very dirty and somewhat homeless, with no money. Madame Forestier looks at her with a sad and sympathetic face. She says, "Oh, my poor dear Mathilde, why mine was only an imitation." The story ends just like that. The theme statement that I thought that best represented this story is, Being grateful is far more powerful than greed in terms of long term success and happiness. Mademoiselle was never happy with what she had. I chose a short passage that represented this. Here it is. Instead of being delighted as her husband had hoped, she flung the invitation irritably on the table, exclaiming, "What good is that to me? Why, my dear, I thought you would have been pleased. You never go anywhere, and this is a really splendid chance for you. I had no end of trouble in getting it. Everybody is trying to get an invitation. It's very select. Only a few invitations are issued to the clerks. You will see all the officials. Now let's skip ahead a bit. What do you expect me to wear to a reception like that?" She then started to cry. Instead of being thankful for what her husband had done for her, she acted very immaturely and complained about it. She always wanted more and more. This desire for always needing more brought her nothing good. It left the couple with very little of anything. By the end, they were poor, dirty, and sad-faced. The only reason is because of her wanting more. If she had just been happy with what she had and gone to the party, things would have turned out differently. It's not like they were not somewhat well off. They had money and could live properly. They were just not at that high level of wealth. That is what my theme statement is trying to portray. Being thankful and grateful will bring so much more happiness and success than always wanting more and thinking you don't have enough. It's definitely okay to have a goal in mind and to try and achieve something, but in society, in less gifted wealth, you actually have to work for it. Instead, she just whined and complained about her life, and that didn't get her anywhere. After I read the story, the author's purpose of writing this, to me, was to almost show the karma effect. Not that Mathilde did anything bad, but she was almost asking for it. She took everything she had for granted, and she lost it all. And that is why I created this theme. One of the literary elements that I chose was conflict. There are a few instances during the story where Monsieur and Mademoiselle ran into conflict, such as when Mathilde was convinced she had nothing to wear to the dinner party. But since I've already explored that passage from the story, I'm going to talk about the part when they realized the necklace was gone and the decision making that went into that. Here's a passage from the book. "You must write your friend," said Monsieur Loisel, "and tell her that you've broken the catch of the necklace and that you're having it mended. That will give us time to think over things." They never found the diamond necklace, but not only that, they never told Madame Forestier. Instead, they replaced the necklace. When you look at what the couple did to resolve the conflict, there are definitely going to be some regrets. Maybe the best thing to do would have been just to tell her they lost it. Her friend would have then told them that it was only fake. They would pay the small fraction of the real price and go on with their lives. Instead, they decided to lie. In short stories and novels, things don't get exciting without conflict, and that's what I feel this story really strives in. The second element that I decided to choose was epiphany. Although epiphany is more of a device than an element, I feel that in the way that it's in the book, it's more there to put an effect on us instead of the character itself. At the end of the book, we find out that the necklace was actually just a replica. Here's a passage from the story. "Oh, my poor dear Mathilde, why mine was only an imitation. At the most, it was worth 500 francs. That's how the story ends. It makes us realize that this whole time she has spent trying to pay off this necklace could have been completely avoided. But since the story just ends like that, it leaves us to think about more than it would if the story continued. It was a complete plot twist that makes you think and reflect on the story, and that is why I chose this as one of the elements, because I feel like it just hits us really hard. And that not only does it hit us hard, but if the story had continued, it wouldn't have had such an impact on the audience. Personally, I really enjoyed this story. The ending was great and somewhat unexpected. The basic and neat style of writing Guy de Maupassant put into this really made it for me. When I read books, I often have trouble following along, but he made it very easy and understandable. Although there were some words I didn't really know, it didn't take away from it. The way that he wrote made me and maybe the other readers not feel so bad for Mathilde. It was kind of like a oh well, sucks for you type of situation. You know, like Mathilde brought it on herself, and I think that's what the author was trying to do. And I thoroughly enjoyed the creativity in his writing. Also, although the story just ended without further information, it made it good that way because it can let us interpret what went on from there and to be able to reflect on it and what just went down. From my point of view, I can't really say it had any weaknesses. It wasn't too long, it got the point and idea out, and it was creative and easy to understand, while still bringing out the imagery and emotion. From the viewer's point, me being a high school student, what more can I ask for besides the fact that maybe I could have used a bit more of background info? Everything was pretty structured and well done. Here are my sightings, and thank you for listening to my screencast.